sorry. I do not want to relate to you. I do not want to sit next to you in a chair on a podcast and share my rock bottoms with an absolute loser. You know what I mean? Like, my rock bottom is not anywhere close to your rock bottom.
That is a rock bottom, being on the rock bottom.
Exactly. That's my rock bottom. You're right. If I need a career boost and I'm going on Ned Fulmer's podcast, that's my rock bottom. I can't be lower than that.
This is just so embarrassing. It's like, okay, you rise to YouTube fame. You fall into the depths because you thought it was appropriate to sleep with a coworker and you got caught doing so. You go on a podcast. You make your own podcast called Rock Bottom. Well, Ned, you weren't there yet. You're there now. This just further proves my point, though, that he's trying to get into the manosphere. That podcast wants to be a manosphere podcast so bad, and he's just going anywhere and everywhere so that he can gather that audience.
After more than a year of silence following one of the most public cheating scandals on YouTube, Ned Fulmer has decided it's time for a comeback. The former Try Guy, once known as the internet's ultimate wife guy, is now trying to reinvent himself as a solo creator. In the past few weeks, Ned has launched not one, but 2 new projects. A podcast called Rock Bottom, and a YouTube series that suspiciously mirrors the Try Guys format. Both are meant to symbolize a new era of Ned, one where he's supposedly learned from his mistakes and is ready to rebuild. But viewers aren't exactly buying it. The Spill Sesh commentary highlights how uncomfortable it feels to see Ned attempting to step back into the same spotlight that burned him in the first place.
I'll be pushing my body and mind to the limit.
What's happening mile 11 through 15?
Blisters might be getting worse.
Oh, no!
We'll go all the way up to 8 Gs for feeling up to it.
Learning about different jobs and hobbies.
Oh, hi.
Oh, I might even help others find love.
I have like a mouth or a spit fetish.
I'm hearing some red flags.
We'll taste some of the most delicious food in the world.
Oh my God.
Is this the greatest idea of all time?
I'll try some cooking too.
This is called the old slap it in a bowl technique.
Only to be brutally roasted by a panel of comedians.
There is life growing inside of me right now, but I somehow have lost my will to live.
And possibly punished. So join our community and hit subscribe for more videos that make you curious.
See you next week.
Anything for your art, though, right?
Anything, but we must sacrifice for art.
There's a strange irony in watching someone who built a career on wholesome, family-friendly content now trying to rebrand himself through humble recovery. For many, the timing feels forced, almost like he's rushing to reclaim relevance before the internet completely forgets about him. When Ned introduces his projects, he talks about wanting to move forward and grow from his mistakes, but it's hard to ignore that both projects seem designed to remind people of the scandal that ruined him. Instead of evolving creatively, it feels like he's retracing old steps, repackaging what used to work for him, and hoping the public will forgive and tune back in. The result, according to Spill Sesh, is less of a comeback and more of a confused attempt to rewrite a narrative that no one asked for. Ned Fulmer's newest YouTube project feels eerily familiar. And that's exactly the problem. In what seems like an effort to revive his career, he's created a solo version of the Try Guys without ever mentioning the name. He's calling it something different, but the formula is nearly identical. Ned tries outrageous or entertaining challenges, documents his reactions, and plays the role of the goofy, curious host. But as Spill Sesh points out, there's a strange tension in watching him carefully avoid the word try, almost as if he's legally prohibited from using it. Every piece of content seems to tiptoe around the very thing that made him famous. This unspoken boundary is painfully obvious. It's as though he's performing an impression of his old self, the same structure, tone, and editing style, but without the chemistry, humor, or warmth that came from the original Try Guys group dynamic. The creative energy that once came from 4 friends experimenting together has been replaced with Ned alone, performing for an audience that's mostly lost its goodwill toward him. The irony isn't lost on anyone. The Try Guys built their brand on friendship, collaboration, and shared vulnerability. Ned's solo series, on the other hand, feels like an echo of that, a hollow attempt to recapture the spark of a group he destroyed through his own actions. As Spill Sesh puts it, the content itself isn't even bad from a production standpoint, but it's dripping with discomfort. You can almost feel him trying to prove that he's still capable, still charismatic, still relevant. But the magic of the Try Guys was never about one person trying, it was about the camaraderie. And without that, Ned's version feels like a ghost of what used to be. When Ned Fulmer resurfaced online, it genuinely caught people off guard. After his public fall from grace, most assumed he'd disappear quietly, maybe pivot behind the scenes, or at least give the internet more time to move on. But instead, he came back swinging, uploading new videos, launching a podcast, and pushing himself front and center on social media again. According to Spill Sesh, what's surprising isn't just the speed of his return, but how unapologetically visible he wants to be. He's not easing back into content creation. He's actively trying to reclaim the spotlight. Ned is now uploading to 2 different YouTube channels. One he previously shared with Ariel, and another from his Try Guys era that still had a solid subscriber base. It's clear he's trying to capitalize on the remnants of his old audience rather than starting fresh. That in itself says a lot. If this comeback were truly about growth and reflection, you'd expect a softer, more mindful rollout. Instead, this feels calculated, like he's treating the scandal as an obstacle to rebrand around rather than a moral failing to actually learn from. The internet's reaction to this has been predictably mixed. Some are curious enough to click out of morbid fascination, while others are outright annoyed that he's resurfaced at all. For many, it's not even about the cheating anymore. It's about how tone-deaf his return feels. After everything that happened, viewers expected humility, maybe even restraint. What they got instead was a full-on publicity push, complete with trailers, thumbnails, and subscribe for more outros. The whole thing gives the impression that Ned isn't rebuilding, he's relaunching, and for a lot of people, that's where the frustration begins. One of the first big moves in Ned Fulmer's so-called redemption arc was the launch of his podcast Rock Bottom, a title that's almost too on the nose. The concept, according to Ned, is to give guests a space to talk about their lowest points in life, their personal rock-bottom moments, and how they've grown since. It's framed as a reflective healing project, but the irony is thick. As Spill Sesh notes, the idea of Ned Fulmer, a man whose entire brand imploded because of his own actions, hosting a show about overcoming life's lowest moments feels strange, to say the least. The first episode featured Ariel Fulmer, his wife, and the person most directly affected by his cheating scandal. It was their first joint appearance since everything went public. And the response was brutal. Many saw it as performative, like he was trying to stage manage forgiveness in real time. Clips of the episode quickly went viral for all the wrong reasons, with viewers calling it awkward, forced, and borderline manipulative. Ned seemed to use the podcast as a platform to humanize himself, but the optics were impossible to ignore. In a later interview with TMZ, Ned admitted that watching clips from the podcast made him cringe. He said he wasn't perfect in that moment, but insisted the episode represented 3 years of growth for both him and Ariel. While he might have viewed it as closure, audiences saw it differently. Many felt it was an attempt to rewrite history, to reframe the scandal as part of his journey, rather than a betrayal that deeply hurt multiple people. What could have been a raw, honest space for redemption ended up feeling like image control disguised as vulnerability, and that tone set the stage for the rest of his comeback. If the podcast wasn't tone-deaf enough, Ned Fulmer's next move made the internet collectively groan. His first major YouTube video after Rock Bottom was a dating show called Future Love, a blind dating concept where one contestant is secretly an AI pretending to be human. The premise could have been interesting in someone else's hands, but coming from a man who became infamous for cheating on his wife, it felt almost like satire. Spill Sesh doesn't hold back, describing the entire thing as a mess. The video features a bachelorette blind dating 5 guys looking for love, with one secretly generated by artificial intelligence. There's cheesy dialogue, awkward flirting, and Ned introducing himself with a straight face. Hi, I'm Ned Fulmer, and welcome to Future Love, a show that explores dating, love, and technology. The problem is, no one wants to hear him talking about dating, love, or anything remotely romantic. Commenters flooded the video calling it embarrassing, cringe, and unreal, questioning why he would ever choose this topic to relaunch his public image. Even worse, the thumbnail for the dating video used a still from his podcast episode with Ariel, making it feel like he was intentionally playing into the scandal. Viewers accused him of trying to bait outrage for views, as if his first move after betrayal was to make content about romance. The reaction was overwhelmingly negative. And while the video gained traction, it wasn't for the right reasons. It wasn't intrigue, it was morbid curiosity. For someone supposedly trying to move forward, Ned seemed fixated on the very themes that destroyed his reputation. And in doing so, he turned his redemption story into yet another PR disaster. The backlash to Ned Fulmer's return was immediate, fierce, and, in many ways, inevitable. The internet doesn't forget, and the Future Love dating show proved that perfectly. Comment sections were filled with disbelief. Ned leading a dating show after cheating on his wife is unreal, one viewer wrote. Others called it so embarrassing, comparing it to watching a parody of his downfall. Spillsesh summed it up best. The entire situation felt like a social experiment in self-awareness, and Ned was failing it spectacularly. Across Reddit, TikTok, and YouTube, people shared clips of the show with secondhand embarrassment. The consensus wasn't just that the videos were bad, it was that they were painfully tone-deaf. It wasn't about the production or the editing, it was about context. After publicly blowing up his marriage and career, diving straight into dating content felt like rubbing salt in a wound he created himself. Instead of addressing his actions with sincerity, he seemed to be trying to pivot back to entertainment as if nothing happened. And it wasn't just casual viewers speaking up. Longtime fans of the Try Guys expressed frustration that Ned was trying to mimic the old group's style, describing his solo efforts as hollow and self-serving. Some commenters even speculated that he was banking on the controversy itself, using hate-watching as a form of engagement. If that's the case, it might have worked algorithmically, but at the cost of credibility. For a brief moment, it looked like Ned might be trying to build something new. But the public response made one thing clear: the internet isn't ready or willing to let him step back into the spotlight, especially if he's pretending nothing ever happened. Spillsesh and other commentators have floated a theory that makes uncomfortable sense. Ned Fulmer might actually be leaning into rage bait as a strategy. Instead of avoiding controversy, he's using it. The idea is simple: outrage drives clicks. After all, the easiest way for a canceled creator to get back into the algorithm is to make people mad enough to talk about them again. And when you look closely at Ned's recent choices, it almost feels intentional. Launching a dating show as your first video post scandal isn't just clueless, it's bait. Using a thumbnail featuring his wife Ariel from their podcast episode, also bait. Even the podcast title Rock Bottom sounds like a self-aware wink at his fall from grace. It's as if he's daring people to hate watch, knowing that outrage can be repackaged as engagement. In a digital landscape where clicks equal currency, negative attention still feeds the algorithm. But this tactic comes with a cost. While it may momentarily spike views, it erodes long-term trust and brand identity. For viewers who once saw Ned as a wholesome, family-centric creator, every edgy comeback move reads as performative and desperate. Spillsesh notes that the tone of his videos, upbeat outros, YouTuber-style like and subscribe lines, clash jarringly with the weight of his past. It's not reflective, it's promotional. If rage bait really is the plan, it's a risky gamble. It might bring eyes to his content, but not hearts. People aren't rooting for Ned anymore. They're watching to see what awkward move he makes next. And while that might temporarily fuel his metrics, it cements him as a curiosity, not a comeback story. One of the strongest themes Spillsesh points out is Ned Fulmer's ego, that persistent need to be the star of the show. During his Try Guys era, Ned's on-screen persona revolved around being the wife guy, the doting husband who built his entire image around fidelity and family. But underneath that, Spillsesh suggests, there may have always been resentment, a quiet frustration at not being the main character. After the scandal, that tension seems to have exploded into full view. In his recent interviews, Ned talks about feeling boxed in by that husband and dad image. He claims that version of himself no longer represented who he wanted to be.
Work, it's like the things that consistently drew people in were adorable family posts or talking about my wife, and then producers lean into that and like craft situations for me, and I don't know, over time it felt super pigeonholed and just like I had to fulfill this one like quadrant in a foursome to just be this like, you know, kind of caricature.
But instead of reinventing himself authentically, he's chasing the same validation that once defined him. The attention, the camera time, the admiration. Watching his solo content now, it's hard not to notice how much it centers around proving something. That he's still interesting, still capable, still enough without the Try Guys. The problem, as Spillsesh points out, is that charisma and likability can't be forced. The audience can feel when someone's trying too hard to be relevant. There's a sad undertone to his videos, like a performer trapped in a spotlight he no longer fits. The production quality might be solid, but the soul isn't there. It's as if Ned's fighting to reclaim something that the internet already took away. At its core, this comeback feels less like a creative rebirth and more like an ego project. An attempt to prove he doesn't need the group that made him famous, but as the views flatten and the comments pile up, it's becoming clear. You can't rebuild a fan base when the foundation was built on betrayal. In a move that further baffled the internet, Ned Fulmer began doing press appearances and even dabbling in professional wrestling. After his YouTube relaunch, he sat down with TMZ to discuss the backlash surrounding his Rock Bottom podcast and the public's response to his new projects. He acknowledged that parts of his comeback had been cringe, admitting, "I see how I'm not perfect in that moment." He framed the podcast as part of his 3 years of growth, suggesting it was meant to open uncomfortable conversations and show how much he's evolved. But for many viewers, it came off more as self-justification than accountability.
Can you just tell us all about this? Like, how did this start?
Yeah.
What got you to this point?
The new show is about building curiosity, and I wanted to do things that were really high spectacle, like really like once in a lifetime experiences. Pro wrestling was one of them. When we started talking, they were like, yes for everything, which was amazing. Like anything I pitched them or they pitched me, we're just like, yes, let's do it. Let's do this. Let's do that.
Clips of Ned wrestling circulated online, accompanied by waves of secondhand embarrassment. Commenters described it as another desperate attempt to stay relevant, a man bouncing from podcasting to YouTube to wrestling in search of validation. Spillsesh observed that every new stunt feels less like a creative venture and more like a rebranding strategy gone off the rails. Each appearance seems to lack a clear direction, as though Ned is throwing himself into anything that keeps him visible. Whether it's a podcast, dating show, or wrestling ring, the message feels the same. He's still trying to convince the world, and maybe himself, that he belongs in the spotlight. By the end of Spillsesh's breakdown, one message is clear. Ned Fulmer's comeback isn't just falling flat, it's actively reminding people why they stopped rooting for him in the first place. The scandal didn't just end his image as the wife guy, it dismantled an entire company's stability. In a sit-down interview with Anthony Padilla, Try Guys members Keith and Zach revealed the true fallout. Advertisers fled, millions in brand deals vanished, and their channel took a massive financial hit. Ned's actions didn't just hurt his marriage or his reputation, they crippled the livelihoods of his former friends and coworkers. That context makes his attempt to rebuild as a solo entertainer feel hollow. You can't market redemption without accountability. And while Ned's recent interviews emphasize growth and learning, audiences sense something performative, a man eager to reclaim fame, not repair trust. His content, from rock bottom to future love, plays like a montage of denial. Flashy, well-produced, but emotionally empty. Instead of humility, there's ego. Instead of reinvention, repetition. Spillsesh ends the video by questioning whether the internet will ever truly forgive him, and the answer seems to be no. Redemption arcs only work when they feel sincere, and Ned's so far feels like PR packaged as personality. His refusal to step back, reflect, and rebuild quietly has turned what could have been a comeback story into a cautionary tale. In the end, Ned Fulmer's greatest downfall wasn't just the affair, it was the inability to accept that sometimes you don't get to be the main character anymore. His persistence to stay relevant at all costs might keep him in the algorithm for now, but it's unlikely to restore the one thing he's chasing most: genuine respect.